Hi everyone, this is Gurpreet from Data Canvas, and today I'm gonna share with you one of the most powerful feature of Tableau, that is performance recording. Most of us at some point in time must have came across some performance issues in Tableau workbook, and I know they are quite annoying. So in today's session I'm gonna share with you how we can improve the performance of Tableau workbook by just checking the stats on performance recording. So before I dig deeper into performance recording, let me start with an introduction to what performance recording is. So performance recording is one of the features in Tableau where we record the performance information about the key events as we interact with the workbook. So there can be different kind of key events like query execution, compiling a query, geocoding, connection to data sources, extract generation, layout computation, and many more. So how these events have impact on the performance of the workbook, that's quite crucial, and we are going to learn how each one of these events have different impact and how we can do things differently or follow best practices to improve the performance of the workbook. So let's get started with a blank new workbook, as you can see on the screen. So first of all, we will connect to the data source, and in this case I am using sample superstore dataset. So I will just click to that, and first of all, in order to use performance recording, I have to create a workbook or a dashboard, right? So in this case I will create multiple worksheets and we'll bring it all together into the dashboard. So let's start with creating the sales number for product categories. And you can see we have 3 categories and we are showing the sales here. So I will give the name to the sheet as category sales. I will create another worksheet, same to existing one, but this one will be for subcategories. And I will give the name subcategories sales. And the third one, I want the trend for sales by order date, and I would like to see the trend by month and year, as you can see it here. Then the other one, I would like to see the sales by state. So in this case, I will bring the sales number by state, and I will change the chart type to the map, and you can see here, the darker the color, the more sales figures they have. Now I'll bring all these together, but before I do that, I will just bring subcategories into filter shelf, and I will select all, and I will make it apply to all using this data source. And I will do the similar thing for the dates, order dates. So I will bring it into this one and I will use relative date. So I will click OK. Oh, so I guess the data, we don't have the data for today. So I will keep it by years and I will say last maybe 4 years. So we can see the data we have is from 2016 to 2019. So that will work. I will then apply this again to all data source, all worksheets using same data source. So now we will quickly create a dashboard, and I will bring all these categories, the worksheets, into the dashboard. I will show the trend at the bottom here. If you can see, come on, here, and sales by state. I will keep it at the bottom as well, or maybe let's switch it like this. That's a bit better. I will remove this and I will bring the filters onto the filter shelf. So I want subcategories and I want date. So you can now see the dashboard is ready. Now I want to see the performance of this dashboard. So for that, what I need is, first of all, I need to go to the help section. In order to start the performance recording, click on help, go to setting and performance, and say start performance recording. So now the performance recording is started. So I will just change the filter conditions and you will see as I change the filter conditions, the events are happening. At the back end, it might be compiling the query, executing the query, geocoding is happening, and I want to see the result for last 3 years. Excuse me. So I have selected multiple filters and changed the condition. So now we will go back to Help tab again, Setting and Performance, and stop performance recording. Once we stop the performance recording, at the back end, the Tableau will create a separate performance workbook, performance recording workbook. So the performance recording workbook, once it's created, I will show you, it contains 2 main dashboards. So as you can see here, it contains 2 main dashboards. One is the performance summary dashboard and one is the detailed view dashboards. The performance summary dashboards shows us the high-level overview of the most time-consuming events. And the detailed view dashboards provide a lot more details, which we can dig later in our next tutorial. So let's start with performance summary dashboard. So in here, as you can see, on the top, we have show event taking at least time in seconds. So as you can see here, the maximum time it took 0.14 seconds to make the changes or the event. So the maximum time taken by the event is 0.14 seconds. And you can see here that geocoding is the event. So we'll go step by step into different sections of this dashboard. So the first section is the timeline, and the second section is the event, and the third section is the query. So let's start with the timeline section of this dashboard. So timeline section is the uppermost view in the performance summary recording dashboard. It shows the events that occurred during the recording. And they are arranged from left to right, where the leftmost section is the workbook, then we have the dashboard, then we have the worksheet, and then we have the event. So the event column identifies the nature of the event, and the final column which shows each event durations and how it compares to the other recordings. So if we scroll down, you can see here, so the worksheet is the subcategory sales and the event is compiled query. If we go down, you can see after compiled query, there is an executing query event. And then again for the worksheet category sales, the compiled query. And that way you can see the different times. So at the bottom, you can see the time in seconds, which tells you the time taken by these events in a different order from left to right. So here you can see all these events at different worksheet and dashboard level. And then the next section is the events. This is the middle view in the performance summary dashboard that shows the event sorted by duration. So the topmost event is showing the maximum time taken by that event, and as you go down, the time is reducing. So it is sorted in the descending order of duration taken by duration for each of these events. So as you can see here, geocoding is the event which took maximum time of 0.14 second. Compiling query for different dashboard, as you can see, the worksheet is changing and that the time is reducing as we go down. And on the right hand side, you can see here different events. So compile query, geocoding, executing query, rendering. In this particular dashboard, these are the only 4 events, but you can see in more complex dashboard where different events like computing layout, connecting to data source, generating extract, there are a lot more kind of events, but this will give you the gist of which particular event is taking maximum time and is impacting your performance. And at the bottom section is the query. So in this case, executing query, we can see there is actually one query which is executing. So when we click on that, it will give us the query at the bottom, which will tell us exactly which query is running and how much time it's taking. So in this case, it's 0.04 second, which is quite minimal, but in some scenario I've seen the query is taking like 30 to 40 seconds to run, which means that the query is not optimized and it needs to be cleaned, or there is too much data or a lot of LODs we are using or table calculations we are using, which is not ideal for performance of the workbook. So that needs to be looked at. So this is how you can see which query is taking maximum time, and you can make sure that we are using the best practices to remove those kind of issues in the workbook. So let me go into these events one by one. So I will just explain a bit more about these events. So let's start with computing layouts, which we don't have it here, but computing layout is a kind of event. If you see the bar at the top which is saying computing layout, and that's taking maximum time in your dashboard, then it means that the layout of the dashboard is complex and it's taking a lot of time because of that. Or it can be like you have used too many worksheets in a dashboard which is not optimized for better performance. So it's worthwhile looking into those issues and reducing the number of workbooks in worksheets in the dashboard. That will help to reduce that kind of issues. Then connecting to the data source. So sometimes we see slow connections due to the network issues or issues with the database server. So that's why connecting to the data source event might be the maximum time consuming event. So that can be looked into by talking to your database administrator to make sure the database server is working fine, or it can be because of the network issue. So that can be looked into as well if your internet connection is fine and running all right. Then the compiling query is another event which I've seen a lot of time, and it's quite common, where compiling a query takes a lot of time. The long compile time indicates that the query generated are really complex. The complexity may be due to the too many filters, complex calculations, generally due to the complex workbooks. So that need to be looked into by simplifying the workbook using action filters or moving calculations to underlying database rather than doing those kind of calculation in the Tableau workbook. That will help to reduce the compiling time. So I will show you after this an example where I will use the action filters, and the time should definitely reduce from 0.14 second to some time lesser than it. So I will show you after I explain all these events. So then the executing query is another kind of event which also sometimes takes a lot of time, depending upon if you are using a live connection, then the query is taking too long. It could be because of the underlying data structure. It might not be optimized for Tableau. So in that case, check your backend database server documentation, or also consider using an extract instead of live connection to speed the performance. But if in case of extract, the query are taking too long, then definitely we should review the use of filters. If we have a lot of filters, then maybe a context filter will make more sense. And if your dashboard that uses filter, and you should consider using action filter, which will help to improve the performance, which, as I mentioned earlier, I will show you in a second that how action filter will improve the performance. Generating extracts is another kind of event which takes time sometimes, because when we generate the extract, it basically creates the extract from the backend source and bring all the columns and fields which we need. But most of the time we are not using all the fields in the dashboard. So for example, if a dashboard is using 10 fields from the backend data source, but while extracting, we are extracting 20 fields. So just a simple logic, like more data we are extracting, more time it will take to execute, even if we are using less number of fields. So it's always recommended to use filters to filter out the data first of all, and then hide the columns which we are not using in the dashboard. So that will speed up the extracting process. Then another kind of event is geocoding. To speed up the geocoding performance, we should always try to use less data or filtering out of data. So these are the main events which are commonly seen in these event lists. And if you want to go into details of these ones, so these are the worksheets which you can see: timeline, event, and query. which will give you the overall details which we have seen in the dashboard. If you want to see the bigger list in the same worksheet, then you can switch over to this one and see that. So here we have seen the performance for the dashboard which we were working on. So now let's change these filters into action filters. So first of all, I will select everything and I will remove these filters. I will remove this as well. So right now we are looking at all the subcategories and for the last 3 years. So now I will go to the dashboard tab and click on actions, and I will create a new action filter where I will say just action filter in this case. And I want to select all the categories here. So I mean the category worksheet, subcategory worksheet, and I want to select the sales by state categories, sales as well. And I want to say when I select any of these, all these worksheets in the dashboards change according to what I click. And I will go here and show all values and press OK. Okay, so now whenever we click on any of these bars, so for example, let's say arts, it will filter the entire dashboard for just arts subcategory. And if we click on binders, it will filter based on that. Same way, if we just click back on that one, it will unfilter to the original view. So let's try doing this with the performance recording and check the performance. So in the previous case, our performance was 14 seconds, right? As you can see here, 0.1 second, sorry, not 14 seconds, 0.1 second. And I will now start the recording again. So go to help menu and setting and performance and click start performance recording. So now we will just select the same way we did last time. We will select one bar, it filters everything. Now press Ctrl key and select if you want to select multiple subcategories. So just keep selecting the ones you want. So we have selected 6 subcategories, and you see all the charts are updated based on that. And let's say if I just want to see a particular state, in this case Washington, I will click on that as well and it will update the charts. So now let's go back to help and setting and performance and stop performance recording, and it will again open the performance recording workbook, which will give us the view of the performance recording in this case and how the queries are executed. So let's see how this thing had impacted on the performance of the workbook by just using action filters. So let's see. See, you can see the results straight away. By using action filters, the maximum time taken by an event was 0.05 seconds. Whereas in the previous case, it was 0.14 seconds, where we just did a minor tweak in terms of filters. So that shows how we can do the performance tuning by just looking at the different events in the performance recording workbook. So we can also use a lot of other best practices, like using the booleans instead of if and else calculation. Try to use numeric values rather than strings to speed up the calculations. Always try to hide the unused fields in an extract. Always try to use relationships instead of blending, which feature recently came in Tableau 2020.2. So avoid using blending wherever you can. So all these basic best practices, once we follow, we will be able to achieve the better performance of the workbook. And this performance recording event shows you the maximum number of time duration for a particular event, which is critical. So we know that, okay, this particular event is taking, let's say, 30 seconds or 50 seconds, which needs to be looked at. So we can drill down into that event and make sure we are following the best practices to reduce that time to a minimum value. So that's how we use performance recording to make sure our performance is well tuned in our workbooks. I hope you guys enjoyed this session, and if you have any questions regarding performance recording or performance tuning in Tableau, please feel free to drop me a message or just comment in this video. We'll catch you next time with more performance tips and other videos. So if you like this video, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.